your shoot timing is over. You're still here with us to attend this session. And thanks to people from 132 who are joining us for this session. Thank you, Brijender and the entire group. Mayank, you just saw his video, and all others who have joined from 132. And we also have our special guest for today, Ariv Sharma. Okay. He's a 10-year-old kid, and he's a wizkid already, and of course we can all learn a lot from him. When Pankaj, who is right here somewhere, Pankaj told me about him, I was really surprised because he has already published his first book. He's just 10 years old. Wow. And he's already writing his fourth one. Talk about that. And we also have his parents here, so welcome to Adobe for this session. And yes, as promised, Ankur Warikoo is also going to join to talk about time management, but he's a little late. So he's on the way, and I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that by the time we are done with this part, he would be here. Let's see how good he is with his time management. Alright? So let's hear from Ariv about his story of writing his first book and his experience through that. Over to you, Ariv.
Respected elders and my dear friends, first of all, thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity to share my experience for writing my first book, Landstill Van Catfur and the Mystery of Missing Stamp. To begin with, my grandparents, especially my grandfather, inspired me to be creative and to do new things to utilize my free time. I made a board game with him at the age of 6. I played the game with my friends whenever they visited my home, and all of them liked the game. Few days back, I developed a table soccer game using cloth tongs, chopsticks, and a shoe box. I am an avid traveler and keep observing things I see. I like to add my travel experiences in my stories. I love to play drums. My inspiration to write a book was my cousin sister who writes articles and books for fun. I developed a habit of reading books just 2 years ago, and I'm the fan of the famous series Geronimo Stilton. I started writing my story on a notebook, and after writing each chapter, I would read them to my parents and my grandmother for their suggestions. Once I completed my story, my parents and grandmother read it again, and we decided to get it published. I also told my English teacher at my school, and she allowed me to read a few chapters in the class to my classmates. The response of the teacher and my classmates was very motivating. My mother searched for a publisher to publish the book and talked to them to complete the publication work. It was a long process of 6 months where my parents did the editing work of the book. I thought about the looks of the characters, such as what should the character wear and what should it look like, and illustrations, and told the same to the publisher. Writing a book is a time-consuming process. It requires hard work from all people around us, our parents, grandparents, teachers, and friends. My friends and family helped me in promotion of this book, and we are still doing the same. Because of the motivation I got, I have finished writing my second and third story in the series and about to complete the fourth one. Hopefully, these stories will be published soon. In the end, thank you to all of you for listening to my experience. I hope you have got motivated to do the things you like doing. Thank you.
What I noticed about what he just said is that it's not just one person, okay? So miracles can happen when we collaborate, right? Miracles can happen when you have parents who are supportive enough to help with the editing, teachers who identify that, okay, there is some spark in the kid, and even grandparents, they also help you, right?
Yeah.
So tell me first of all, that where did it all start? Like, what was the first thing which was a eureka moment for everyone that, hey, you can write?
I had many ideas in my mind, so I started writing my first chapter. And then I thought that it could be converted into a full story. So I wrote the chapters, and it made a flow. So that's my idea.
Okay. So you started writing your first chapter, and
Yes.
from there you moved on. So when you were writing your first chapter, were you thinking that you would be able to write the full book?
Yes, I was thinking, but not too sure.
Not too sure. So what was the moment when you were very sure about it?
When I had finished the first chapter, then second, then third, then I thought that it could be converted into a story. Then I was very sure about it.
Okay. So again, an interesting aspect here, that we don't necessarily have to think of the last thing. We cannot just say, oh, okay, today I want to be a writer and I want 10 books published under my name. It doesn't work that way. It starts with the first step. And things happen eventually. Somebody would be there to guide you, somebody would be there to support you through, somebody would say you are not doing well at all, like Mayank mentioned in his video. Somebody would make mockery out of you, right? Anything can happen, but what matters eventually is that you keep on with it. You write your first chapter, not necessarily for a book, for anything and everything that you do. Write the first chapter. Don't think about the end of the book. Step one is moving forward with the first chapter. Then you move on to the next one, then the next one. And when you look back, okay, there's a book ready. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me this thing, that if how do you manage your time? Because I'm sure you go to school, you have a lot of other stuff to do. Because I know even in Toastmasters, some members say, we don't have time to attend meetings, we don't have time to go for even the gym or a basketball court or Zumba class, which is happening just next door. So how do you manage time?
After completing my homework, I at least keep half an hour for writing my book.
Okay.
And while traveling, almost 2 hours. And when on summer vacations, I make the time for a whole day also.
Okay. Okay. So you're pretty flexible. That the entire day, don't disturb me. Today I'm writing.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're able to write it in one go, or you erase it, throw papers around.
Actually, not throwing papers, I write it on a laptop.
So when you think about a writer, you know the typical thought process is that there would be somebody with a maybe a feather pen in hand, right? Just the way we think the oldies, right? Okay, now it's time for some audience questions. So, would anybody like to ask some questions?
What's your favorite subject at school?
SST. Social studies.
What's the favorite place you have traveled to?
San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
We have yet to go there.
So he has traveled to places also at
Yes.
10 years old age, yeah? At the age of 10.
So do you think your traveling experience helps your writing, and when you are writing stories, do you also build up something from places where you have traveled? How does your imagination come?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely it helps.
So can you
Explain how
bit,
you-
tell a bit about your second story, which I think you have written about some places?
Actually, it's the third one.
Okay. The writer knows it best. So.
In the third one, I have just written for India only.
So what all places have you covered?
Udaipur and Jaipur and Mumbai.
Yeah, so have these been the places where you have visited?
Yes.
Who helped you the most while writing book? Mother or father or grandmother?
Actually, my father, mother, and all of them helped me. I asked question from them.
Okay, so has there been a time, like just connected to your question, that somebody is trying to change your story, this should end like this, or there's a conflict between your grandparents and your parents, or this is how it should end.
No, I only decide how it's going to
Okay. You don't negotiate on that.
So he rejected many of my comments and suggestions. So
You say that the creativity would be lost. So don't interfere in this.
That's fantastic. I mean, big round of applause for that. I mean, being able to stand for what you believe in, even when other people are telling you that you're going wrong, is an amazing, amazing skill to have. And at this age, it's amazing. I mean, fantastic.
One more I want to ask. So while writing your book, was there a moment during those days that you felt that finishing that book is going to be difficult?
No.
Because maybe he enjoys it a lot.
Okay.
It's his pastime at this stage. Maybe that's the reason.
Okay, so right now, are you looking at all the faces and thinking of the next characters?
And have you found someone?
Actually, we have to make them as a cat then.
Cat.
Okay, so it has to be. So humans are not eligible to be part of your book?
Yes.
So are eligible or are not eligible?
They are not eligible.
Oh my god! And why is that?
Because I am writing a story on cats.
Okay.
The main character is also a cat only.
Okay. Alright.
And his friends should be cat also, so no human allowed.
So no human can be a friend of yours.
But why a book on cats?
It was just an idea. I wanted to write not on humans, some animals type of thing.
And why only cat? Why not a dog or something else?
Firstly, I got an idea of a cat only. When I wrote the story, then I got the idea of a dog. I have written the half, so I didn't cut it. I wrote it only.
Okay.
Okay, do you feel like skipping your school sometimes to write books?
No.
Okay, so managed.
Not at least to write book.
The Mike has a different story to share. Right? So waking up, like if you get up at 2 p.m., then
Yeah.
school time is already gone, right? Yeah?
So, do you think that it would be a subject or at least a chapter in your school?
Sorry?
Would one of your stories be a chapter in your school?
Actually not.
Do you want it? Do you want like that?
No.
Why? I want to make my own stories.
Do you want that eventually that somebody says that this is part of our course curriculum only?
No.
No? Why would it make it boring?
No, it wouldn't make it boring.
Okay, you just don't want it.
Yes.
Okay. Alright, so I just got a news, breaking news. Ankur Warikoo is right here and Rocky has gone to pick him up. So stay tuned. In the meantime, more questions? Any more questions? Any comments?
I have a question this time to the parents. Like, kid is a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old kid today average has a screen time of almost 10 hours a day. How do you have a kid who's writing instead of, forget playing, I'm talking of writing. Kids today, I look at our societies where they are at all times, they are either on their PlayStations, their TV, mobiles. So how do you, know what's inside your house that's happening? Right.
Actually, we both, especially him, he's into book reading. So maybe he, started reading, and that time when he reads, he utilized that time for writing also. Because generally we keep some time in the evening or maybe late at night that we will read some books. So maybe he started utilizing that time.
And how are you able to keep him away from all his mobile phones?
He uses them. But,
He uses them, but yeah, not to that extent.
we have fixed some time period that not more than 1 hour, not more than 2 hours.
At times you have to stop.
We have to. Especially during summer and winter vacation. Otherwise, they doesn't have time because they have a lot of homework also and many more things to do.
So he manages, because he, at the point as he enjoys, writing. So he finds that time of writing. That's the main point.
The parents that have actually inspired him to be here. I think I'd say that. Taking no credit away, but then still, I think I'll give 1 star to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to become in future?
An author, a drummer, a journalist, an engineer.
And that's all possible now, because these days I've seen, like, I met a person recently, he said I did engineering and now I'm in med school and I eventually want to be a real estate so very much by the time you grow up, I believe all that, you'll be all of that.
Just don't get into IT.
Yeah, don't get into IT. Why? That's out of it. Let the oldies be. Okay, any last questions or comments?
So, Ariv, the story that you've written, I'm sorry, I've not read your book, I just got introduced. So, this is for, like, which audience? The target audience is kids or grown-ups, or who do you write this book for?
Kids.
Kids, okay. And in the future?
In the future, all ages.
But then we can always read the book on cats. Yes. We enjoy that.
They are just little big kids.
Yeah. Taller kids, maybe?
10 and above, right?
And it's a suspense story.
So 5 and above is also okay. Then it's depending on children.
Actually, that's the best part.
All right, so yeah, you have.
How does your friends react to it? I mean, they ask you questions, कैसे चल रहा है, कैसे करता है, and all. Do you inspire them? What is it?
Celebrity among this.
The very first day I was writing it, I told my friend, okay, अच्छा है, तो book लिख रहा है, बस thank you.
And now that you have completed it, what is their reaction to it?
No, when I am in the class, no one talks to me. In the library period, when my book is there, they always come to me and say, "Arey, book de de."
And many of them have started writing also.
Okay,
they have already started
inspiring other people to start
They have all
writing,
started.
which is a big thing these days, considering that we see that most of the kids today are on their phone playing video games. And here we have Ariv Sharma, who is a writer already, a published writer, and already writing his 4th book. So we really thank you, Ariv, for taking out time, and of course his parents. It wouldn't have been possible without you, for such an engaging conversation with us.
Show the good book also.
Okay, he's got a book for us.
Yes.
This is my book. This is the book I have written.
This is the first book?
Yes, only first I have published.
Yeah. So he's writing the 4th one. First one is already published. Okay, so we are going to end the session now because Ankur is already here. And would anybody like to do the introduction for Ankur? I actually don't even need to read it now. He is an internet entrepreneur, angel investor, co-founder and CEO of nearby.com. He was one of the core members for the foundation of jabong.com, involved in founding the Gadi.com, secondshadi.com, and his hobby is bodybuilding and all the extracurricular activities which we don't do. And he is a photography expert. He does a lot of videos. So I remember it now. So I don't even have to have a script. I'm an expert in impromptu speaking thanks to Toastmasters. So let's welcome Ankur Warikoo to talk about time management.
Nothing could be more ironic than me being late for a time management. But of course, such is life. It punches you in your face when you think that you've figured it all out. Have I figured this bit out? Yes. Seems like it. You can hear me. Not at the end? Okay, great. Otherwise, I always have my voice to bank on. Thank you so much, Khushbu, for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be on this campus. I was lucky enough to be on the other side of Noida's Adobe campus, and this is the, you call it the 25A campus?
Yeah.
That's how it's called? Because I was actually checking on Google and there was Adobe 25. Like, wow, it's like a privilege to be distinguished this way. I am an internet entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years now. I was not meant to do this in my life. I have spoken about my journey a lot, which was completely in a different direction. I was super sure of what I would do in life, just like Ariv. I was like, I'll become this, I'll become this, I'll become this. And life was actually happening the way I anticipated. And then again, like this time, it hit me hard, and I figured that what I was doing was something that I was good at, but not something that I was thoroughly enjoying myself with. And I completely changed my course from a physics student who wanted to become a PhD doctoral candidate. I absolutely changed tracks in life, came back to India from the US and did my MBA. Started with a consulting job and became an entrepreneur 10 years back. One thing that I have been privileged to kind of have a tag on is somehow when people look at me, they think that I have more than 24 hours in a day, because they somehow feel that you're doing everything, to the extent that they say you're spreading yourself too thin. You are an entrepreneur, you're of course a parent, you're of course a husband, you're of course playing all the relationships that you play. I also do a lot of extracurricular activities, as they're fancily called, which I think is just living life. So I do make it a point to work out every day. I have started to learn vocals in Indian classical. I do read almost a book a week. I watch a lot of videos. I do a lot of videos. I play multiple roles. And I've somehow found this really nice chemistry with time. As long as traffic is not involved between us. And that chemistry is what I want to speak about today. And this is in some way a playbook that has really worked for me. I'm very sure it will work for you. If not entirely, then in the pieces that it does relate to how you live your life. And there are specifically 3 things that I have deployed to manage my time wisely. But let me start firstly with a very brutal fact that we rarely think about as hard as we should, but it's perhaps the most important thing when you think about managing your time. And that is, no one in this world has more time than you. There's no one on earth who has more than 24 hours. And if you ever find yourself saying that I don't have time, consider the fact that everyone in this world has exactly the same time. They're just making different choices than you. So Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mukesh Ambani, Narendra Modi, anyone else that you may or may not look up to has exactly the same 24 hours, the same 86,400 seconds that we all have. And there is zero difference in how much time they get and you get every day. The only difference is how you deal with that time. So whenever I find people saying, I don't have time, that is possibly the lamest excuse anyone can have. Because there's nothing that you have more than someone else, or someone else has more than you. And I found 3 ways of how I dealt with my time to be extremely useful to how I manage it now. Number 1, there is a lot of administrative stuff that we end up doing with our time. And it could be paying your bills, or trying to remember that you have to pay your bills, you have to go here, you have to do this, and blah, 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 blah. And I overly, not because I'm a technology CEO or the founder of a tech company, but I overly depend on technology to manage my time. To the extent that I just let it manage without me feeling the pressure that I should control it in some harsh or linear way. I'll give you examples, and Khushbu might know of it. My entire calendar is managed by an artificial bot. It's a lady called Amy, and she is $25 a month, and she manages my entire calendar. Everything that goes on my calendar is managed by her. And I put everything that happens in my life on a calendar. Whether it's remembering that I have to pay my insurance bills at a certain point of time, I have to go to that Mami Chasti's dinner, we have to go for that wedding, or this is a follow-up that has to happen for that meeting, or I have to record that video, or I have to have this talk, when do I have to leave, how do I have to do it? All of that is on my calendar, and Amy manages it. She is a robot. She speaks to all of you. So if Khushbu wants to set up time with me, I will just CC Amy in it, and Amy will then speak to Khushbu. To the extent that there are, and I did this math, there are close to about 60-65% people who come to meet me in office and they ask for Amy. Because they don't even realize that they were speaking to a robot all this while. She is so good. And it's just the start. Because what we are building, or for that matter, you guys are at the epicenter of, when you build super awesome, powerful software for people and corporations to use, that is precisely what you're doing, helping people like us in some way be far more powerful than what we are. Example number 2. There is a Gmail. What is the email client that you guys use? I'm pretty sure it's not Gmail. Outlook, right? So I'm sorry about that. It's not your fault. I'm not judging you. We use Gmail. It's a really cool product. It's by this company called Google, and it's somewhat faster than Outlook. So Gmail has this plugin called Boomerang. And Boomerang is the best tool to manage your time because it takes away the biggest thing that our time is sucked in for, follow-ups. Imagine you as a manager, if you're not, or if you're a manager, you'll completely empathize with what I'm saying. Our time, both mentally and definitely physically, goes a lot into just following up. Hey, I give you this task. Have you done it? What's the schedule on it? What's the update on it? Can we huddle up? Can we catch up for 15 minutes? All that random noise. And what Boomerang does is 3 things. 1, if you send an email to someone, you can set it to come back to your inbox if they don't reply. Straightforward, right? That's number 1. Because of course a reply to an email is an acknowledgement. That I even heard you, forget the fact that I'll do your work or not. So it starts with the fact that, hey Khushbu, can you get this done by Friday 4 p.m. and I'm sending this on a Wednesday morning or so. If Khushbu does not reply by Thursday afternoon, it comes back to my inbox. Right? So that's when I know that I had told Khushbu to do something and she hasn't even acknowledged. Right? Which is not how Khushbu is, but that's Number 2, if Khushbu sends me an email and I'm in the middle of my work, but I know that this email is important, I boomerang for that email to come back to my inbox when I want it to. So I clean my inbox at that point of time. Because my inbox is in some way or in a large way my to-do list. So Khushbu sends me an email and I say, okay, this is important, but I am at 4 p.m. in the day and I cannot be possibly replying to it or looking at it or thinking about it. So let's just boomerang it for 8 p.m., which is when I will be most likely using it. And number 3, I send an email and I choose when it goes, which is also there in Outlook, right? Because Outlook is, of course, it does something. So it's there that you can send emails in the future. But what I do instead is not so much design it to send it to people, I send it to myself. The number of emails I send to myself just makes me the best example of someone who's just obsessed by oneself. Because what I would do is, I'll come across something. Let's say I'm just moving in a cab, and I see this ad, and I think that this will be a great thing for Nearby to experiment on, but this is not the right time. But I think we'll be kind of ready in November. So I'll send myself an email with a photograph of that ad saying, hey, just consider thinking about how this could apply to November or to Nearby, and it will reach my inbox on the 1st of November, or whenever is it that I decided to. And that way, I do something which is very powerful. That's number 2. I don't spend any bit of my memory on trying to remember stuff. And that's kind of counterintuitive to how people tell us this is not conventional wisdom. Don't try and remember anything. And unfortunately, for 12 years of our life in school, someone will know this, the only thing that we've been told is remember what is being taught. Remember what is being trained. Remember what is being shared, because you have to at some point of time blurt it out. I'm not going to use the word vomit, but I did. Blurt it out on an exam. Right? That's how grading is. That's how you will be acknowledged. That's how you will be ranked. You have to get better at memorizing the stuff that is being taught about or discussed in class. And now suddenly, we recognize that that has caused our horsepower and thus our time, definitely our mental energy, to be consumed by stuff that should not have been in our frame of reference in the first place. Stuff like, why should you have to remember that this is someone's phone number? Is anyone still doing it? Is anyone in this room trying to remember phone numbers?
No more. Yeah.
No more? Yeah. Well, some people do it by hobby because they. Is there a reason why you do it?
Few. In case you know.
Oh yeah, of course, your wives and your girlfriends and.
Emergency contact numbers. Emergency contact numbers in case you lose your.
Of course, yes. So a few numbers, right? So, but it's not by design. It's not as if, oh, okay, just repeat it 9999. Yeah, it's not anymore, right? Because you don't need to. But now go back and try and determine how many times do we actually force ourselves, and I'm using the word force ourselves to remember stuff that we think we have to remember. And this could be starting with a meeting has happened, and I'm just amazed at how many people don't carry a notebook to a meeting. Like they actually think that they will remember everything that will happen in that meeting. That some Saraswati wave will happen, and they're like, "Jab mujhe samajhna ya yaad karna hoga, us samay pe main aa." How many of you saw Stree? Like it's that. Like, mujhe yaad kar lena, main aa jaungi. Doesn't happen this way. Doesn't. Our memory is not trained for just a one-point contact and then just random access memory whenever we need it, at whatever point we need it, in whatever situation we need it. That doesn't work. It requires a very different approach towards learning. And what I did was say, just get rid of all the noise that we've dumped our memory with. Someone's birthday, all the, oh, tumhe hamari anniversary nahi yaad hai, calendar pe dal do, right? And if you really care about it, ek hafte pehle dal dena so that you also have time for the gift. But just don't try and remember. Don't try and remember. Whose birthday is it? When do you have to pay your bills? When do you have to get that recharge done? When do you have to get that insurance renewed? When do you have to do whatever is it that you have to do, whether at work or in personal life? Because what happens is when you free your mind from trying to remember things, you create time for the most important things. You actually just have horsepower left or energy left to do the things that are meaningfully important. And that could be your learning. That could be genuinely having a good night's sleep. That could be waking up, not trying to remember what are the things that you have to do today, but instead just looking at the calendar of your phone whenever you're ready and see it in a glance. Don't try and force your brain to create time for you. It's not going to happen. Same 24 hours. And if you suck it out from administrative things, you're not going to get it back through something else. Which brings me to the third point, that when you save all this time, what do you do with it? And of course the right answer is not Game of Thrones. The right answer is not Sacred Games. The right answer is not anything that Netflix offers. Nothing. It is to actually spend time with your own self. And this is something that I figured, unfortunately, much later in life. And at 38, I wish that I'd only known this when I was 25. And you being in that spot, give or take, my only request to you is begin your day with just spending time with yourself. Because if you get to a point where it becomes a discipline, a habit, then when your day actually starts, which is this work, this campus, your colleagues, your bosses, and so on and so forth, no one can do anything or say anything that takes away the day from you. Because you have found a way to just find your calm and your peace right when it started. So the biggest change that I made in my life is to get up early. And I figured that getting up early is not the hard part. It's sleeping on time. Because there is always a Netflix knocking on your door. There is always that last email, there's always that last round of game that you want to go through, that last message you want to check, and of course there is this beep that always goes on, or the vibrator or anything else. But the fact is, it's supremely easy to get up at 5 should you set your mind to it, but it's supremely hard to sleep at 10 and get your 7 hours of sleep. And the discipline is not trying to stretch yourself and kill yourself or blame yourself for not getting up on time, is to actually get yourself to sleep on time. And please don't assume that me being a CEO gives me the privilege to sleep on time. It shouldn't be that, oh, I have to do all the work and the CEO can of course go and play golf in the morning and sleep on time. That's not how it is. It used to be, and there may be some people who live that life. I don't know who they are, I just look up to them. But in real world, there is enough work that everyone of us has to do, and there are enough choices that we are making to manage our time. So I get up really early, and the first few hours of the day, I do things that I genuinely want to do. I do check my emails because I love checking my emails. I love organizing my day. I love putting things on my calendar. I read, I write, I meditate, I get my son ready for school, I sing, I work out, I play tennis, I have a lovely breakfast that I look forward to. And by the time I actually start my day at 9:30, I've had 5 hours to myself. I get up at 4:30. I have 5 hours to myself. Can you imagine getting 5 hours for your own self in a day? It's crazy. And I can guarantee that any one of you has not spent even an hour with your own self in the last 7 days. And if you have, that's pretty remarkable, right? So congratulations. It doesn't happen. And you have to just make fundamental changes to your life to get to that point, and they never stay. They just fizzle away. You think that you're not determined enough, not disciplined enough, and all those things that we blame ourselves for. But you've got to get to a point where you start your day with spending time with yourself, doing whatever it is that you want to do. But it's with your own self. It's not with someone else. It's definitely not with someone else's thoughts, and it's not with someone else's opinions. When you get to that point, at 9:30, no one can touch my day anymore. No one can touch my day. No one can do anything, say anything that will ruin my day. Because I have already won the day before my day kind of started for the society, for the world, in whatever way and shape that they see it. And that's why I throw myself into any situation that I can, whether it's social media, whether it's work, whether it's these talks, whether it's anything else that I have to do. And I get done with that, and I make it a point to sleep on time. It's as simple as that. Every day, 10 o'clock, off. And of course, you'll have to make some changes around that. And it may seem, which is the last thing that I want to talk about, that this is a dry life. Like, who wants to live this life? So here's my life. I don't have tea, coffee, any sorts of liquor, no juices. I don't drink non-veg, I don't eat non-veg. Now you can figure that I don't even know what drinking and eating non-veg is. I don't have non-veg. There's no television in our house. I don't watch any Netflix, nothing. My only consumption is either TED or YouTube. I get up at 4:30, I do all this spiritual stuff, and then I get home, sleep at 10, and you're like, I don't want that time. I'm pretty okay just living the way that I am right now. And that's your choice. Please go ahead, by all means, make that choice. But here's where I completely lose my mind. When you make that choice, there is no excuse for you to expect anything else coming out of it. You cannot be making the choices that you're making and expecting to have the life of people that you look up to, because they have not made the choices that you have. So the worst thing that I find in people is that they will say, I want to make my choices of being who I am, the way that I live, and the way that I want to, and yet I want the life of people who every day struggle and don't get comfortable with where they are. And that is not a cool trade-off. It's not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. So if you're someone who says, you know what, the most important thing for me in life is to earn money, then great. Do whatever is it that gets you that money. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't be ashamed of it. And then don't expect other things to come by that you see in people as like, काश मेरी जिंदगी ऐसे होती. यार ये 7 बजे घर जाने वाली जिंदगी बड़ी अच्छी लगती है. No, you're not going to get it. Because if you are chasing money, then you chase money. Then there's nothing else that you do. And if you're chasing family and happiness and personal relationships, then that's what it is. Life is a trade-off at all points of time. It's the decisions that we make, the choices that we make that determine who we are. And no one in this world has it all. They might give you the impression. Social media might give you a wrong image. They might click photographs of places that you can't even pronounce. Like, "Wow, vacation भी चल रहा है, Elon Musk यहाँ भी जा रहा है, ये भी चलाता है, वो भी करता है, Mars पे भी जा रहा है." Like, I want that life. But if you want it, then you should want all of it. If you've heard of this guy called Naval Ravikant, he's the CEO of AngelList, which is one of the best-known investment startups in the Silicon Valley. He's also a very deep thinker. And he said this one thing which I felt was the best definition of how we, in some way, misinterpret what jealousy is. A lot of us are jealous of people, for right or wrong reasons. Hey, I'm jealous of, say, I don't really mean it, but as an example, I'm jealous of Shah Rukh Khan for his charm. I'm jealous of Amir Khan for his intellect. I'm not jealous of Salman Khan for anything. But you know, there are these jealousy things that you have. Mukesh Ambani was kitna paisa hai? Or like, I would love to be Jeff Bezos and be like the CEO of this super awesome $1 trillion company and so on. And what he says is that when we make these statements that we're jealous of people and some trait of theirs, that's a very unfair statement to make. Because if you're truly jealous of someone else's traits, what you would have to do is to get their entire life to get that trait as well. So if you are jealous of the money that Mukesh Ambani has, the question you have to ask is not, hey, can I get his money? The question is, what will I do if I have his entire life? Like, I will become him. And everything that he goes through on a daily basis will be mine. Because I can't conveniently pick and choose what I want. This is no sort order where it's like, okay, let me get Priyanka Chopra's prettiness and Amir Khan's intellect and Serena Williams' athleticism and anger and whatever else is coming in, and let's just make a nice, cool package because that's what I can. That doesn't work. That's not real life. You really have to think that if you like something in someone, are you willing to trade your entire life with theirs? Because that's how it works. And that's what choices are all about. So when you get up in the morning and you make that choice, the choice will be yours. And if you choose not to do that, and if you choose to live life the way you are, eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, watch whatever you want, there's nothing right or wrong, there's no one passing judgment, don't expect to live someone else's life who have done that consistently in a disciplined fashion and now are bearing the fruits of what they have done for a long period of time. Not going to happen. And that's where we become very short-term as humans. That's when we become really petty, very small in our outlook, and almost imagining that if I could just work out for 3 months in a year, I could get someone's body. And I could be fit forever. I genuinely have nothing to work or do or anything like that. One of the recent changes that I've made is both my wife and I, we love sugar. We just love sugar. It is unreal how much we love it. And not sugar in its form, but like mithai. Like Indian sweets, kaju, barfi, rasgulle, gulab jamun, any sorts of things. Like normal barfi bhi kha lete hain as if it's like the best thing ever. I don't remember the last time someone had normal barfi or even gives it. But we're like, no, this is not. Because you clearly know, as rational individuals, sugar is bad, period. Like it's the biggest scam that has been sold to us. We were all told at some point of time that fat is what makes us bad, but if there's anything that makes it worse, it's sugar, by far. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go to YouTube and check it out. And if you are addicted to sugar, that's a really, really bad thing, because there's an entire lobby that made it sound as if sugar is cool, and now we're just so used to the fact, it's psychologically proven. When we were growing up, we used to have sweets. At least I came from a middle class family, so it's not that kaju barfi rosa. So we only had it when there was something to celebrate. And what our conscience started doing, subconscious rather, is started to associate good things with those sweets. So now, even if we are not going through a good period, we tend to gravitate towards the sweet because it generates the same emotions that we felt when we were kids, and it kind of comforts us that good things are happening. It's celebration. When, of course, the stark reality is facing on its razor or something. It's not celebration by far. And that's what gets us addicted. So 2 months back, we said, No sugar. Let's just see. Let's just see how far we go, but no sugar. And of course, you rely on some crutches, you chew gum, you drink lots of water, you do whatever it is. And now it's 2 months, and a week back, we decided that we're going to have sugar once a month. And we decided on that date. So the date was August 25th, which is my birthday last month. And we had a pineapple pastry, one of the best pineapple pastries I've ever had from Theoroma. And we almost puked. Like we couldn't enjoy it. We became like the Matrix. Like nothing made sense anymore. It was just tasteless. And we felt bad about it. And like, oh my God, we've lost like one part of our life now. But suddenly we're like, no, this is a conscious choice that we made. It's a conscious choice that we made. And then it just so happened that the corporate insurance renewal, health insurance renewal was due, and I had to go for a medical test. In the first week of September, just about last week, I go for that test, and it's that TMT, treadmill test, and goes out in blood, vitals, and so on and so forth. And the report comes, and this was, I stay in Faridabad. And I'm pretty certain that's not true, but he was like, he showed me the report, he's like, sir, आप फरीदाबाद के सबसे healthiest इंसान. Because I haven't seen these vitals. Like everything is in control. Cholesterol, ye, wo, हजार चीजें, TMT is like the ease with which your heart rate went up and it came down. It's like magic. He almost came across as a poet, because I'm pretty certain that was not his job destiny. And he's most likely lying. But I found the fact that less than 4 years back, I was in deep cholesterol, I did not have the right hemoglobin, I was definitely not working out, I definitely was addicted to sugar, I was 89 kgs, overweight, and I was still okay with it. And that's the not so cool part. Because you suddenly feel, nothing's going to happen. And it's not that anything happened, but then life just threw something at me which just said, okay, you know what, let's get it back. Because if I can get my life, then there's nothing else that I would want. I just need to feel healthy, fit. And I made those choices, which seemingly may not look like the best choices for a rational, joyous life. But the truth is, those are the choices that you're making. So I'm going to rest with that, and of course there are a lot of questions that you can ask for. But these are the 3 things that I rely on to manage my time. I overly depend on technology, and I make it a point that I don't obsess about administrative things that consume my bandwidth. I try and not remember anything, nothing. I rely on just records that I've created that help me get the path back. I literally carve my way back. And third is I ensure that on a daily basis, I start my day with spending time with myself, doing stuff that I thoroughly, genuinely enjoy. And that way, you suddenly fill up your day with nothing that can impact you and a purpose that was established right when you started. Thank you. Love to get questions.
All right, questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we can shut down our WhatsApp.
Yeah.
We can shut down Netflix, YouTube, etc.
Yeah.
But now there is a project which is very close to you and it's very good for society as well, and you are very much attached. You just want to do it.
Yeah.
How do you detach from it and again go to bed at 10?
No, so I like the question, but I don't like that you put the solution in the question itself. So let me stick with the question that you had, which is I can shut off all the other distractions, but there is this meaningful project that I want to work on. And how do I get that done? Forget whether you want to sleep at 10 or so on. My honest answer to that is when you get up in the morning and you decide what is it that you want to spend time on with your own self, that could very well be this project. In fact, that should be this project if that's what you're passionate about. What you want to ensure is that when you start your day, you feel really good about how you spent the first few hours. And you want to do it only with yourself. You don't want to do it with even family. No one. You just want to do it with yourself so that you genuinely begin to appreciate the thoughts that go on when you just start your day. All the nonsense and nuisance and noise that we get entrapped in. You want to just become comfortable with that. And that could very well be by working on that project. So I would not negotiate when I sleep, because that determines when I can wake up. But I would happily trade meditation or reading or writing or anything else that you think you should be doing when you get up with working. With doing something that you genuinely want to do and have fun doing and you feel good about yourself. And that could be that one.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
So you said you put everything into the calendar.
Yes.
But how much time you spent entering all these details in the calendar?
Amy does it for me. I don't do it. As I said, Amy does it for so I love my emails, and I genuinely feel that email is perhaps the best productivity tool out there if used well. And it's almost like, hey, technology is the best thing ever if used well. So I send emails to Amy, and I will be like, hey, Amy, remind me to fill my insurance form on the 29th of October, and do it every year. That's it. Done. She'll set it up, and it's gone. And I will only check my emails 4 times a day. So all time, if you send me an email, you will get a pause alert, which is I'm not checking my emails, and I will only read my emails on these times, and if it's really urgent, call me. And guess what? No one calls. Because it's never urgent. It never is. And of course, there are some people who call us like, sir, I need a job. It's like, that cannot be urgent. I assure you, if you don't have it tomorrow, you'll still be fine. But yeah, I just manage it very well. And that's the trade-off that I choose to make, to not want to or have to remember anything that I have to do. Yeah? You have a question. I'll come to you.
How do you manage your personal life with a professional one? Either any imbalance would either stain your relationship or your appraisal.
Yeah. and that's a very fair question. Look, I have a harsh response to that, and that goes back to what I was saying. You make your choices. And I have consciously made my choice that work for me is more important than anything else. And I'm just blessed that I have a partner who understands that. Not that it's easy on her, but she gets it. At least she says so. And I do make sure that whatever time I spend with them is time that I can value and treasure. It's not then distracting. It's not like checking my phone and so on. I'm still guilty of it, so I wouldn't say I'm 100% clean on that. But I do want to make sure that I don't compromise on whatever time I spend. So for instance, my job is to get my son ready for school. And I'll do it every day, irrespective of what time I got back home, what time I slept, and so on and so forth. And that becomes our me time. Because that's when I ask him how his day was, and blah, 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 and he tells me stories, and we connect, and so on and so forth. Our daughter's only a year old, so we don't talk much. And my wife and I, we thankfully like to do the same things. We like to go and watch movies, we like to go and shop, we like to go for theater and drama, and so on and so forth. So we make our time there. But I wouldn't say that it's a balance. What I do say is, because I am just so grateful and so in some way fulfilled at my work, that I don't bring any strain to the personal equations that I have. And because that also does not make me feel guilty and bad about the choices I'm making, I can easily go back to my work and be my best. And that is a cycle that has just found its rhythm. I wouldn't say that was easy. We did have our conversations, our debate, our differences, but over time it's just come to a point where it works. I have this very unpopular opinion, and we had this very intellectual debate with my wife, where it's like the notion of cheating in a marriage, in my opinion, is very narrow. Because it almost always assumes that it's with a person. So if I am cheating on my wife, I am having an affair with a woman. And what I told my wife is, I have been cheating on you all these years. It just happens to be with my work. And you have to understand that society has this really convenient way of boxing things that work for them and don't work for them. But I have no shame in expressing the fact that I am, for all technical purposes, cheating in my marriage, because I'm emotionally and physically spending way more time with my work than I am with my wife. And when I say this, society actually applauds it. Is it like, oh, that is an ambitious person out there. And that is a super cool individual who's just so committed to his work that he actually thinks he's cheating on his marriage. And I find that very, very, very hypocritical. Because at the end of it, you are making a conscious choice of not giving your 100% to a relationship. And I don't feel bad about the choice, but I do feel it's very unfair on the other person, especially if she doesn't align with it. So I've got to that point where there is alignment, but at any point of time, if people just say, you know what, I'm working for 16 hours a day, but it's for us and our future and our kids and so on, that's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Because at the end of the day, yes, you're doing that, but that cannot be an excuse for you to not be committed to that relationship and be emotionally, psychologically, physically, mentally detached from it. Doesn't work for me. Sorry, I deviated from your question, but I hope I got your question right. Okay, you had a question? Yes.
Yeah. Two things.
Yes.
So, I get that you are 100% every day, day in, day out, because you love it, you have passion for it. Yeah. The first question, are there days when you are 98%?
Sure.
And if yes, does it bother? How do you come out of it?
Sure.
How do you get back on track?
Yeah.
Because you want to, not because there is any structural given to you. No syllabus given to you, it's choosing your own. And second thing around your meditation and that kind of routine. So what do you do for that part?
Okay. So the first one is a great question, which is, are there times when you don't feel like doing what you're supposed to do or what you've told yourself to do? Of course there are times when it doesn't feel like it. And what I found is, and this is explained, it's documented, it's just science, so I'm just repeating what researchers have concluded. The difference between you feeling that you don't want to do it and you actually getting it done is usually 3 seconds. It's 3 seconds. It's just that absolute momentary instant where you're like, let me just sleep for 15 more minutes, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get up. And it is amazing how well this works. Because, so I've seen it, and I'm experimenting on Vidur, who's a son. He's 7 years old. He loves to swim. He loves to swim, he goes there every day. But every day, he'll be like, मुझे नहीं आना, मुझे नहीं आना. सर बहुत प्रैक्टिस कराते हैं, पानी बहुत ठंडा होता है, कुछ खेलने के लिए कुछ नहीं. And my job as a parent is to literally just drag him to the pool. Because once I do that, his instinct takes over. And then he doesn't want to get out. 2 घंटे, 3 घंटे, like मछली बन गया, पूरा, like absolutely in it. And you recognize that what I'm essentially trying to do is not be the, oh, इसको टेनिस भी सीखना है, पियानो भी सीखना है, संस्कृत भी सीखनी है, उर्दू भी सीखनी है, स्विमिंग भी सीखनी है, और डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प भी बनना है. It is just get him habituated to how to overcome that momentary nahi jana. Because if you just train yourself on that, that is the only thing that you need in life. Think about it. What is the biggest thing that stops us from doing whatever we want? It's this. It's just our own story that we tell to ourselves. I am not capable, I can't do it, I'm tired, I don't have time, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. It's just always what we think of our own selves. And if we find a way of dealing with that, it just is gold. So I wouldn't say that I have found a way of dealing with it 100%, of course, and I don't think there's anyone like that. But I've definitely recognized that it is nearly not as hard as it seems to be when we think that we don't want to do it. It's just very, very easy if you convince yourself, no, get up. Just get up, and then everything else takes over. Of course, you'll have to habituate yourself to that. So I, just to extend that, a lot of people ask me, how do you get up at 4:30? And I ask them back, okay, if you had to get up at 4:30, what would be your plan of action? And they invariably say, I'll set up an alarm for 4:30. I was like, that's the worst idea ever. Because you'll do it on the first day, on the second day, third day maybe in the name of Ankur Warikoo, and fourth day in the name of whatever, Ganesh or Shivji and so on. But fifth day you'll be just cursing yourself. क्यों सुन रहा मैं इन लोगों की? तो वो तो दारू भी नहीं पीता है, उसकी जिंदगी भी नहीं है, उसने रात को पार्टी करी होगी, कुछ नहीं किया होगा. Why should I get up at 4:30? Why should I have his life? And you will always find these excuses. So I tell them, the best way to habituate yourself is to grow into it. It's a habit. It's not one cut. If you're an introvert and I ask you, hey, how can you become comfortable with public speaking, Toastmasters, you don't just get up one day and says, okay, I have to be the best speaker on earth. You habituate yourself into that. So let's say you want to get up at 5 and you today get up at 7:30. Find a time when you know that you can get up every day, today. And people say, I think I can get up at 7. Great. Every day now, for the next 21 days, you will get up at 7. Come what may. Whatever time you sleep, don't care. You will get up at 7. And then you will start reducing it by 10 minutes every week. And you'll get to 5 in 3 months, maybe 4, maybe 6. But you'll get there. The worst thing you can do is 5 baje ka alarm. Not going to happen. For the first 4 days, but definitely not beyond. So I've just habituated myself. And you'll have to give me the credit that I've just lived 38 years, right? So you haven't lived as much as I have, so whatever I tell is just habits. It's nothing to do with intelligence or capability or anything like that. So the second question of meditation, I use this app called Headspace. It's a really nice, simple app. I meditate for between 15 to 20 minutes. But because I've started singing as well, that is also quite meditative. So now I can think I meditate for 40, 50 minutes or so. But it's just very simple listening to your breath, observing it, and just being aware of what you're feeling and being present in the moment. So that helps a lot. You have a question?
Yes. You read a book every week.
Yes.
So which books would you recommend us on self-improvement, time management, or productivity?
So what I do, thank you for the question, I consciously force myself into reading books that are very different from the world that I live in. Because of course I don't need to read another startup book or another motivational book. One, because I have excess of it, and two, it's the same world. My books should not be a reflection of how social media is. So whenever we open up our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or any such profile, we're not seeing things that contradict our worldview. We only see things that confirm our worldview. So if you like Modi, you'll see everything that makes him a superhuman. If you dislike him, you'll see everything that makes him the worst person on earth. There is no counter view, ever. So my books actually serve the purpose where I genuinely want to explore things that have never come my way. I'm a physics student by education, I did MBA, and these are the only two things that I've ever sat in a classroom and studied. I have no idea and appreciation for history, for philosophy, for geography, for music, for anything that I ought to know, because those are different dimensions of how the human brain should be hardwired. And unfortunately, we don't do that. 10वीं कक्षा में हमें बोला जाता है, याद रखना, 10वीं कक्षा में हमें बोला जाता है, जिंदगी में 3 रास्ते हैं, एक चूज करिए, साइंस, आर्ट्स, कॉमर्स. अगर 90% आए हैं तो साइंस लेंगे, अगर आपने 90% में कॉमर्स लिया है तो शायद आप में कुछ खराबी है, अगर आपने कॉमर्स लिया है तो शायद मम्मी पापा के पास पैसे हैं या शायद सीए हैं, और अगर आपने आर्ट्स लिया है तो शायद आपने जिंदगी में कभी पढ़ाई करी नहीं थी, करना नहीं चाहते थे. And this is just the stereotypical boxing that we get ourselves in. And everything is just a reflection of that. You go to business schools in this country, 70% men, 70% MBA, or engineers. Like, where is the diversity? How are you ever going to see a different side of who you are? So my books serve that purpose. And that's why I can't give you any recommendations. Like, in the last 6 months, I've read the biography of Alexander the Great. Right? And it is fascinating. It is fascinating the lives that they lived, where they would just randomly kill people for no reason. It was just amazing what it is, and the ambition that that individual had, what he went through, and dying at 27, and that too from malaria. Like, it's just unbelievable. And then I read the biography of Einstein, and like, oh my God, this guy is so much more than what I had ever imagined, and I am a physics student by education. Like, I should know him in and out, and all I knew of it is just the science of it. I had zero understanding of how he lived as a German, his life in the US, his political views, what he went through in personal relationships, and so on and so forth. It's just fascinating. And then I read a philosophy book, then I read a history book, I would read a completely different meditations book, and so on, and I'll keep just fluctuating. The key here is we fall in the trap that when we start a book, वी फील कि अगर ये बुक हम खत्म नहीं करेंगे तो हमारे ऊपर गेन है, थू है, because we almost feel यार बुक कैसे नहीं खत्म हो सकती. And I actually got to a point where it's like, no, you know what? Even if you read a book a week, which is quite crazy, and it's not that I have been doing it for years, right? At best, 1.5, 2 years. You're reading in a 50-year span no more than what? Some 2,500 books or so? How many books are there in the world? Like, you would only read 2,500 of them. That's it. And you cannot be, oh, I have read the top 2,500 because it came from the Amazon bestseller list. There is so much more out there, so I will never, ever, if a book is not good, read it. Because I'm just like speed reading books. First 2 pages, 3 pages, don't like it, sorry. Not worth my time, move. Next. And yeah, so no really quick suggestions. One book that I would really encourage you to, if you do have the will, and that applies a lot to large organizations such as Adobe and setups which are mature, established, and yet go to the thing, is this book called Radical Candor. And Radical Candor speaks about how most of us as managers do such a poor job of managing people, and what is the right way to do it. And it's a lovely book. I will just leave it there, but that's a great book. But it's not the book you should start it if you don't read, but it's definitely a book you should read sometime. Sound like question? Yes, I'll come to you. The first one.
So you raised the point of habits and how to get into that.
Yes.
I would like to know what the transition you made 10 years into managing times. I think it was not as.
Oh, it nearly wasn't. Nearly wasn't. So the transitions I made, and how much time do we have to do? I want to be cognizant of that.
Depends on the audience.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. I have to.
But if anyone has a pressing thing waiting on your desk, feel free to.
Yeah, please. Right? This is not a classroom, and of course, I have no control over your.
I don't want any emails from any of the leaders.
Yeah, please feel free to leave. I will not feel any level of embarrassment or self-doubt. Here is who I was 15 years back. I was this judgmental guy who genuinely believed people who drink alcohol are bad people. Not bad people, bad people. And they're the reason why society is in a mess. They're the reason you should never hang out with them. Because they will drink, they'll lose their senses, they'll do random things that they shouldn't do, and they'll go around killing people, and that's why society is the way you are. People who smoke are bad people. People who party on Friday nights and Saturday nights are bad people. They don't have direction in life. They're just clueless. I was this super judgmental person who was just judge, like walking on the street, forming opinions and so on. And then when I go to the US, it completely changed me. It changed me because it taught me something that the Indian way of living and culture does not train us, which is, if you had a land of unlimited opportunities, which is what the US is, anyone can be anyone. Anyone can do anything, say anything. What would still be the choices that you make? Because at the end of it, what I think is the US is a fantastic experiment of how mankind could go completely haywire and yet prosper. Because here's my admission, I think that the US is driven by no more than 0.1% of its entire population. People who genuinely have made their choices the right way, because everything else is just a big distraction factory. Everything in the US is just meant to comfort you, to give you all the perks and privileges that most people in the world never get access to, the right choices. So I was like, if I could genuinely carve out my own life, I came back to India, it's like, look, we don't have nearly as much opportunities as this country have, but whatever I do have is a privilege. And I asked this question, and let's do this opinion poll, and I'll deviate a little bit. How many of you are middle class? How many of you are from a middle class upbringing? Okay. All right. You have no idea what middle class is. And you have no idea what middle class is. Like, this room is rich. Super rich. You're just comparing yourself with some Ambani and thinking, oh, mere paas itna paisa nahi hai. You are rich because by a statistical measure, middle class in India is someone who plies the rickshaw on the road, who drives the auto. Someone who earns 10, at best 15,000 rupees a month. And you're definitely not in that. We think we're middle class because we think that our values are middle class and we compare ourselves with the rich spoiled brats and think, oh, we're so cool and we're above it. But the reality is, economically, we may have faced some economic decisions that kind of got us to believe that we're middle class, but we're by far privileged. We're by far privileged. The opportunities that you and I sit on every day is a privilege. And they don't come as easily to anyone outside of this really nice fancy campus that you call Adobe 25. It doesn't happen. But we very rarely stop to acknowledge the fact that everything that we live in is a cocoon that gives us the impression that we deserve to be here, that we've really worked hard to be here, that we're so good that we are not a surprise here, but the fact is that we're not meant to. So when I broke away from that shackle, I came back to India. I was like, let's start with the fact that I'm not middle class. I actually had a family that took care of me, that loved me, that raised me, that gave me food and shelter and clothing, sent me to school. I can speak in English, I can speak in Hindi, I can speak, I can read, I can write. And with those privileges, I'm already the top of the pyramid in this country. By far. But what I become of it is now my choice. And I just submerged myself into observing people. I had this knack, so I would not credit it to something that I worked towards, but I just submerged myself into observing people and trying to theorize why people behave the way they do. Why are people not motivated when they have everything that they ever should have got? Why are people still motivated when they don't have anything? Why do people feel threatened when they are acknowledged or made aware of their shortcomings? And why do people feel so good about themselves even when the praise is shallow? And all those things got me to a point which you see today, a lot of reading, a lot of learning. As I said, just 38 years. And if you were to do it, you'll get to that same point. But the US was the big realization that changed it all. It changed it all. I don't know if I answered your question because honestly, I don't know how I did it myself. I think that's a good thing because then there is no set pattern to it. Anyone can do it. If I can, then anyone can. Okay, you had a question, and I'll come to you, sir. Yes.
Just a personal question. I guess I heard you saying that you don't have a television at home.
Yes.
And families goes to war in India if you don't have a television at home. So how do you convince your children saying every day coming back home and they're saying my friend has it and we don't have it, and maybe your wife saying it, so same thing. So
be a pressure.
No, sir. Yeah. So one, you can't be a dictator in these choices, of course. मैंने बोल दिया तो नहीं होगा. There is an alignment, and again, I said life is very, very, very easy for me because I have a partner who just understands and thinks the same way. So we were very clear: television does not serve any purpose, zero purpose. कुछ नहीं रहा उसमें. And if you really want to know anything about it, I read 2 newspapers every morning, and people are like, कौन पढ़ता है newspaper आजकल? और वो मतलब 24 घंटे पुरानी है. You're a tech CEO, you should be in the know, you should know exactly किसकी funding कब हुई है, कब कोई जा रहा है, कब क्या ये है. It's like, no, even if I know it after 24 hours, there is no urgent. No one's saying that if it's so urgent, then call me. We do like our storytelling, so we occasionally watch Netflix, and we have a smart TV that connects to the internet, which is very rarely used, but we don't have a cable connection and we don't use it for more than an hour a week or something. Kids will only adopt what is the ecosystem around. And that's the good and the bad of it. It's a reality of it. All our kids are just a reflection of who we are. They weren't born that way. So if anyone is a racist and a sexist and a bigot, it's because their families were. So don't even try away. Like, no one's going to become one in college. And nothing's going to happen to them in such a deep way that they become someone else. They were this way, the way they were raised. As simple as that. Don't run away from that fact and don't definitely try and absorb yourself from that crime. Parents, I read this book. It's It's this guy called Kapil Gupta, who's a philosopher and a really good one at that. And he wrote this book, which is a dialogue between a student and a guru. And the student asks, Kapil, are you a parent? And Kapil says, no, I'm not. And he says, do you have kids? And Kapil says, yes, I have 2 kids. Then the student says, if you have 2 kids, then you are a parent, right? He says, no. Because the worst thing that someone can do to a child is to actually become their parent. Because the reality is, parents are the biggest reason why kids most likely falter. You shouldn't be hearing this part. Because if kids were not born, do you know what is the only fear that kids are born with? Anyone here? What is the... Huh? Close. Falling. Falling. Falling is the only fear that kids are born with. Which means, by the time they are whosoever they are, 7, 8, all the fears that they display have been acquired. They have been acquired. And I'm amazed at what all fears do they acquire. Fear of snakes. And they've never seen one. By far. Dur dur tak nahi. But something in us has got them to do that. Fear of the dark. Fear of strangers. Fear of people dressed or looking or speaking in a certain way. Fear of not approaching people. Any other fear is acquired. And parents, 100% to be blamed. 100%. I lay the blame on myself, anyone else. Because we do it, not consciously, of course, we would never want our kids to become a certain way. The fact is, the way that we just live our own lives makes it this way. And thankfully, I wouldn't say thankfully, but yeah, at some point in time we'll see the damage that we've done to it. Right
Are you saying we should not fear snakes?
No, I would say that you should fear snakes when you yourself have had a reason to. Not because someone's told you that they're dangerous. Least of all, National Geographic. Okay.
A couple of questions.
Please.
So I would say many of us here would try to, develop a habit.
Yeah.
They say you do anything for 21 days, it becomes a habit, and you do it for 90 days, it becomes your lifestyle. But when you talk about time management, for example, you reach here late, and you're coming here to give a speech about time management, right? So it's not just us; it's external factors which is involved in it, right? And you're trying to, for example, you set something up, you have 10 client meetings today, and somewhere it misses, right? So it spills over to the next day, right? So again, it's in a loop.
Sure.
We're going in a loop. So I'm sure you must have experienced a situation, and you must have tried hard to come out of it. So what's your suggestion? How do we maintain that? How do you come out of it? If we falter, because once we falter, that's when we start. Like you said, 4 days, you hear the alarm, you're cursing yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you come out of that? First question.
Okay.
And second question. Is again I would say many people, not just in corporates, they want to do what they love to do.
Yeah.
Maybe become an entrepreneur.
Sure.
So how did that happen to you? Your experience around it, and what's your suggestion for people who want to do that?
I hope there are no HR people here. Okay, so the first one, I will distinguish between time management and punctuality. 2 completely different things. Being punctual does not mean that you manage your time well. It just means that you're punctual. You showed up on time. Time management for me is how effectively do you deploy your time to get the work that you were supposed to do get done in a day. Or in whatever, a week, a year, and so on. How well do you deploy that time? At the same time, not feeling that it's a drag. So, here's something that I read, and it resonated a lot with me. Time management is about how you manage your energy. So when people say, I don't have time, what they implicitly mean is I don't have the energy. And this is physical energy, mental energy, spiritual energy. Are you slept well? Are you fed well? Are you rested well? Physical energy. Are you mentally at peace? You're not stressed. There is no overdose of anxiety or overdose of, oh my God, what's going to happen? You're at peace with your situation, or at least you have a way of dealing with it. Spiritual, have you spent time with your own self? Have you really spent time in your mind, your breathing, whatever the case may be? If you have the right energy, you will get stuff done way, way, way more than anyone else. And then go back, very often, it's the energy that is sucking the time out of our day. It's not the time that is sucking the energy out of the day. Time is just time. It just goes. It doesn't care about anyone else. But it's our energy that then starts manifesting into how we spend our time. So I will distinguish between being punctual, showing up on time, or managing your time effectively. That's number one. By the same measure, I will distinguish between what people call multitasking and doing several things in a day. Multitasking is doing several things at the same time. You're driving and you're speaking and you're listening to music and maybe something else. That's multitasking. And that is never productive. But if you have the ability to move from one task to another and one task to another, driven by the energy that you have, that makes it an effective day. So when I am able to navigate between social media and meetings and board meetings and my son and my tennis and my reading and go back to something critical and do a US call and so on, it is not multitasking, it is multiple tasks in the same day. Very different. So I'd encourage you to think about time management not in the way of being punctual and not in the way of being multitasking, but in the way of how much of the energy that I have can I deploy, and thus how much of my time that I have can I deploy to effectively accomplish the things that I had set out to do in a day, and can I do multiple things in a day without having the hangover of what I just did. That make sense? Not, you don't look convinced, so go ahead. No, that's fine.
So what I meant to ask was, like, for example, let's take the example of you taking your kid to the pool.
Yes.
And let's say that's between 7 and 8 in the morning.
Sure.
Right? Now, due to some reason, you reach there late.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is, like, so if you've managed your time, or you've set up, like, this is what I need to do at this time of the day,
sure,
and so on and so forth, it gets spilled over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you manage, like, how do you come back to that, and how do you try and manage?
You don't try and come back to it. You don't try and come back to it. Because that's what sucks the energy. At least I don't. If something spilled over, so look, I do have the privilege of being a CEO, so I can afford some of these things that may be not so easy for someone like you, or most of us. But the fact is that if a meeting does get spilled into another and another, the worst thing you can do is try and recover the meeting that has already gone by and destroy everything else that is to follow. But that's never going to happen. You have to get to a point that says, okay, I'm going to still contain my energy in doing what I can do in the day, and tomorrow when I start my day again with the right energy, I will accomplish what I had to do previously. But it can't be retroactively, oh, I spilled over this meeting, now let me go and fix it, but fixing that means that the next meeting is also destroyed, and then it's like this spiral that you go into. You'll never recover from that. Or even if you recover, it's a shallow recovery. Never works. Yeah? I completely forgot your second question now, because I was not trying to remember.
Sorry, about entrepreneurship.
Okay, about entrepreneurship. So it happened serendipity, as Khushbu mentioned right in the beginning. So my first startup was this startup called secondshadi.com. And it was a really cool experience. It was India's first matrimonial site for remarriages. Right? Super cool. Because we figured as intellectuals right from a business school who had gone into consulting that we knew the entire world, and we were like, this is what the data is. 11 million marriages take place in India every year, and of course some of them are bound to get divorced or widowed, and they don't have a platform to get married again. And Shadi.com is clearly not doing a good job. We didn't know anything, we weren't married ourselves, but we were just making these guesses. So we started secondshadi.com. And it so happened that this was a chance accident, and I think a large part of my life is just these series of chance accidents that happen. A friend of mine and I am catching up. We're from the same business school, ISB. And he talks about this idea. He says, I'm working on secondshadi.com. I was like, that is such a great idea. Like, who thought of it? It's like, my dad did. Okay. I hope your dad and mom have a good relationship. But is there any way that I can help? And he's like, yeah, that's the reason I shared it with you, because I'm a techie, I'm a coder, you're a marketing guy, so why don't we work together to build this up? And I was a realist, and I said, look, I would love to do it, and I will make sure that I do it, but I can't quit my job right now. Because I think it will require some bit of financial investment to make that happen, and it'll be foolish for us both to quit the job. So why don't I stick in my job, kind of keep funding it, you, because you're already in it, continue doing whatever you're doing, and we make it happen. And that's what we did. So for a year, I moonlighted. I went back to 80. Mom, have a good relationship, but is there any way that I can help? And he's like, yeah, that's the reason I shared it with you, because I'm a techie, I'm a coder, you're a marketing guy, so why don't we work together to build this up? And I was a realist and I said, look, I would love to do it, and I would make sure that I do it, but I can't quit my job right now. Because I think it will require some bit of financial investment to make that happen, and it'll be foolish for us both to quit the job. So why don't I stick in my job, kind of keep funding it, you, because you're already in it, continue doing whatever you're doing, and we make it happen. And that's what we did. So for a year, I moonlighted. I went back to AT Kearney, which is my consulting firm, and I actually took permission for them to work on my startup alongside. And they were supremely generous with it. And that's when I came up with my most powerful quote that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And how many of us will actually even dare to ask our bosses that I have a side startup that I want to work in, and are you cool with that? It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Hey, why don't you do some more work? That's it, it's gone. Right? So I went in there and they're like, look, if it doesn't hamper with what you're doing, we don't care. Because this is clearly not a competing business. Right? You're not going to get into consulting with Second Charlie. And that's what I did. Nights, weekends, completely Second Charlie, did that for a year, loved my time, and then went full-time into Second Charlie, quit my job, took a 70% pay cut, went absolutely to the basics, the bare minimum that I needed to survive, and did that another year and a half, started some more websites, and that's how it happened. It was just complete serendipity. And that's why I go back and keep saying this, and I'm testimony to what I say. We are just blessed to be sitting on the privileges and the opportunities we get. We just don't see them. We feel that they are, it's about normal. I'll give you a good example. When I quit the first startup, we sold it to Go Ibibo, and we made what back then looked like the most money I'll ever make in life. I'm like, life chill hai, and you, vagara, and let's look for the next opportunity. And there was this company called Rocket Internet, which was a German company setting up shop in India, and they ran a very successful fashion e-commerce company in Europe, the #1 fashion e-commerce company. And they wanted to start the same thing in India, which is what Jabong eventually became. And they were looking for people to start it. They sent this email to the ISB alumni group, and I was like, this looks like a good thing, let's just apply. Let's just have a conversation. I did no reading. Nothing whatsoever on Rocket Internet, or how it's going to work, blah, 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 nothing. It's like, this looks like a good thing, let's just apply. What's the harm? And I go in there, and the next thing I know, I'm sitting in front of this guy called Oliver, and he's talking about the opportunity and everything, and I looked at, this looks good. And then at the end, he was like, why did you apply? I said, because you sent an email to start with, and two, I thought this was an interesting opportunity to talk about. And then I asked him, why did you ask this question? And he's like, because we sent this email to the alum group of IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Cal, and ISB, and you're the only one who applied. I was like, what? Because I suddenly felt bad about the fact that I might get this job, but I would come first in a race that I was the only one in. But that beyond, I was like, how is it even possible that no one else applied? And then I started reading about Rocket Internet, and I figured, for those of you who know about it, it has a really, really bad reputation of firing people on the spot, of being very ruthless. It's a German company, so it's this German way of looking at life and business and so on. And Oliver, who I was meeting, is considered to be the most aggressive internet entrepreneur in the world. And he will be like, I don't care, he will abuse, he will do whatever the case was. And I figured, I don't know the answer, I figured that's what people read and they didn't apply. And I was like, look, I would love to work in such a setup because it will bring me down to my knees and it'll teach me something that I will never forget. Going back to how I treat my books. Nice, happy Hindu college, professors love you, Ankur kitna pyara, ye wo vagera vagera. I don't need that. I need someone telling me, you know what, you are a failure, you're a loser, you're not a rock star, you're nearly not as good as you think you are. Go back, do this again, do it again, and let's just see where it takes me. And I did that, signed up. 3 of us, random people. Arun, who's just graduated from INSEAD, comes in. Praveen, who's a McKinsey manager, comes in. I come in, and the 3 of us start this experience called Jabon. And for 4 months, we were miserable. Like, we would get on a call where he'll be like, I don't want your Indian B, I don't want your Indian BS, I don't want this. This is how you do it. I need this done. I need it done in the next 2 hours. This is how we will ramp up, blah, blah, blah. And it just stretched us so much that I just discovered a completely new side of it. And we hired 65 supremely awesome professionals in a 1.5 month period. We hired warehousing, what big sizes. We started on the website, blah, 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 blah. And then we shut it down. We shut it down because we figured that no one had figured out the FDI rules of running an e-commerce company in this country, because you can't do it with foreign investment. And we were a foreign company. So we went from spending 0 to spending $12 million in 4 months to shutting all of it down in 3 days. And I did all of that to a great extent, particularly the shutdown period. And that experience just humbled me. It just taught me so much that no privileged, cushy job would have ever. And I just figured, you know what? I was reminded of this Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook, when she joined Google. She had this interview with Eric Schmidt, who was back then the CEO of Google. And she had again come from this really cushy consulting job. And she's asking these items, role kya hai, paise kitne hai, meri seat kahan hogi, kaun si khidki se kya dekhengi. So she asked him, what will be the title of the role? And he laughs at her and says, you know, when you're getting a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask for the seat number. And that is just so true. So I just figured my life is a rocket ship. And whenever some opportunity comes by, it just sounds so good to be true. And I was like, there is no way that I can get it. I would first say yes and then figure out how to do it. Because I would first say no, buy me the ticket, and then we'll figure out whether I can get the window seat or the pilot, or I'll just do whatever else I can. But I'll get it. And I think that's a large reason of why I am where I am. Great. I think we are done. Okay, one last question because yes, please.
So before I come to the question or rather of concern, I wanted to talk about 2 things. A, thanks for making us feel rich, because all this while I thought you were up.
I know, exactly. You're all welcome. I would need 10% of your savings as part of the consulting fees.
So come to the concern, I feel a lot of times when I've tried to work on time management, just related to this session, I feel I can't switch off. So there are times when I just can't stop thinking. Even when I'm trying to meditate, I am maybe praying, I just can't stop thinking.
Yeah.
And how do you switch off? Maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
So, okay, good question. It will take a long while to answer, but I'll give you a short answer. You don't try and ever switch off, because that's the exact same thing that meditation will teach you. There is no way. So here's what we are all trained. We're trained, if you're feeling something bad, anger, hate, jealousy and so on, curb it, fight it, destroy it, stop it. And if you're feeling something really good, happiness, calm, peace and so on, hold on to it. And don't let it go. Pata nahi kab fir se milega, kal ho na ho, and blah, blah, blah. And so you would just do everything to hold on to that. Meditation tells you that's the wrong approach. Think of life as weather. You can't wish the clouds away, but the clouds will go away. And there will be sunshine. You just always have to be aware of what's happening. So when you meditate, you are always following the principle of awareness and compassion. I'm aware of what I'm feeling. I'm not trying to fight it. I'm not trying to hold on to it. I'm not trying to cling on to it. I'm not trying to detest it. I'm trying to be aware of it. So awareness, and when I'm aware of that feeling, I'm compassionate towards myself for feeling this way. So if I'm feeling anger, I'll actually find myself saying, you're angry. You're angry, and it's okay. And what meditation does, I don't know the science behind it, I'm trying to still figure it out. The minute you're aware of what you're feeling, it goes away. It just goes away. But the minute we try to hold on to it, cling on to it, or push it away, or do whatever is it that we think should we be doing, it just tries to come back. So what you feel is very, very normal. And I am not at that Zen mode, or anyone else who would claim to be, who would meditate and their entire meditation would be just 100% awareness. In my 15 minutes of meditation, I think I get at best 30 seconds of pure clarity. Everything else is garbage, it's noise. But all that I'm telling myself is, this is what you're feeling, you realize it, and you come back to your breath. This is what I'm feeling, and I come back to my breath. This is what I'm feeling, and I come back to my breath. And that's what you train your mind on. So that helps. Yeah? Great. Okay.
Thank you so much. Not once, but second
twice.
time.
I know.
So, as you say, unless you ask or unless you believe, because I'll just repeat the same story which I told last time, that when we first thought about just contacting Ankur, he was, we just looked at his videos, and I said, I'm following his videos on LinkedIn. And another person in Adobe said, I'm also following, so we can have an Ankur fan group within Adobe. So we thought, why not invite him over for one of our meetings? And there were people who said that, really, would he have time for us? And here we are.
No.
So let's see his time management, that he is so gracious. And yes, I took the first step to reach out.
Absolutely.
And of course, Amy helped you.
Yes.
But yes, it was amazing to even get an answer from him. Because sometimes we wonder that if we reach out to somebody who is at his level, would that person even bother to reply? But thanks, Ankur. I can't really express how happy I feel when you even reply to a board deck email chain, and I take it as an opportunity. So there was a board deck email chain that went on in this organization.
So we have a Khushbu Gupta who creates our entire investor relations department,
and that's not me.
And that's not like she just has one job, which is what she does here. And I accidentally marked her, and she's like, "Oh, I know all your financials now."
I have the PPT with me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when she triggered the next conversation.
Yeah, and that was an opportunity that now that I have you in my inbox, and that's a non-Amy reminder to me, okay, now I can try, maybe just try, okay, what about coming to 25A office? Yeah. Because we have a lot of smart folks here, and thank you everyone for being such a lovely audience, because you have been here for such a long time now, and considering the kind of role that this team is in, a lot of people working in night shifts, and there are tickets waiting, there are calls waiting, there are customers waiting, and I'm sure you would go back and tell great stories to your managers and leaders that how amazing this session was, that you clinged on to your seat even when you were given an option to sneak out. You were given an option to sneak out, but nobody really moved out, unless of course there was some emergency. That shows how valuable what you said today was.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Ariv and his parents. And we have just a little token of appreciation from the club. Pankaj, please come over and
thank you so much. Thank you.
For Ariv. And Vijender, you can also join. He's our Adobe Toastmasters Club president for this club. And he's coming all the way from Sector 132 office for this session, along with some other folks like Mayank.
Awesome.
You both can join.
Yeah,
for a photograph. Yeah.
And thanks
This is
to
too distinguished a platform for us.
Please join us.
We should have a group photograph of everyone who's here.
Yeah. A selfie? Thank you so much. Thank you, Shubhadeep, for the praise. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rocky, for coming early and just to help with the setup of this room and all the displays and everything. Thanks a lot. And yeah, let's hope for yet another session. Maybe some other day. I don't know the day. But you know about Toastmasters already. If you really want to know more and join the club, you can reach out to DL-TM officers. DL-TM officers. Just drop an email, and yes, we will. Yeah, you want to say something?
I have one last question. Ankur, can you talk about how have you grown into becoming a good speaker, or I would say excellent speaker?
It's 20 years in the making. I love the story of how I first went on stage, and it's a long story. But what you see is just 20 years in the making. Nothing else. Just have it.
And the other one is very quickly. How do you spend your weekend? Is work involved, or you completely detach yourself?
Work never stops. I love my work, so work will never stop. I'll just bucket it. But weekends are usually movies on the screen. Don't watch it on TV or laptops or anything. And shopping, music, easy.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any more questions, please send an email to him and Annie will answer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you at the next club meeting.